So breaking just moments ago, a new NBC News national poll sheds light on the issues most affecting voters' preference, feel about this race, what they're looking for, just 16 days out from Election Day. 61% of us say they're more likely to support a candidate who wants to curb inflation by taxing large corporations, while 52% say they are less likely to support a candidate who agrees with the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade. And, of course, only 18% say they're more likely to support a candidate who believes Trump won the 2020 election. And this happens as millions of voters are already eligible to cast their votes early. Here's Vice President Harris last night in Georgia.
And if you have received your ballot in the mail, please do not wait. Fill it out and return it right away. And you know Georgia's own President Jimmy Carter voted early. Bless him. Just days after his 100th birthday. So look, if Jimmy Carter can vote early, you can too.
Absolutely. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who's out on the campaign trail bright and early. Senator, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good morning, Senator. Let's start really big picture. When you were out there on the campaign trail and you inevitably meet one of these voters who says, I think I'm voting for Donald Trump because he's just better for the economy, how do you persuade them?
Look, I start out with what happened to our rights across this country. Donald Trump goes out and brags that he put in place a Supreme Court that took away a constitutional right from half the population. We now live in an America where 30% of all women live in states that effectively ban access to abortion. I've talked to those women, talked to them about what it means. They're in the middle of a miscarriage. The doctor examines them in the emergency room and says, I'm sorry, I can't treat you because you're not near enough to death. Go back out to the parking lot and hemorrhage for a few hours and then come back. That's all on Donald Trump. We want to be able to restore rights so that everybody in this country is able to make their own medical decisions. And most of the time, I don't get any pushback on that.
You know, Senator, this election is about policy. But it is, I think it's just much bigger than that. It is about the direction that we're going to go as a country. I don't think it's hyperbole to say for the next, 10, 15, 20 years. What do you say to the voters out there that they just say they just aren't motivated? There are a lot of motivated voters, but this is an election that's going to be one on the margins, and it's one that's going to be about turnout. So that means you have to get the most motivated people, but also some folks that say, I don't know if my vote matters. What do you tell them?
Well, so yesterday I was all across Michigan. Today I'll be all across Wisconsin, and again tomorrow in Wisconsin. And each time it's talking to people who say, I'm here because I am invested in my democracy. I care about my country. I care about my children. And so it's finding that part to talk about. And this is why I think we need to talk about what Donald Trump has done to half the population on abortion, what it is that Donald Trump, he's falling apart in front of our eyes. We see this man who is becoming increasingly unhinged, which means that we would have somebody in charge of the nuclear code, somebody in charge of foreign policy, somebody making decisions for our country that we can't rely on, and who is a danger to us and to our children. And J.D. Vance, his vice presidential nominee, this is the guy who makes all of the comments about cat ladies, the one who thinks that normal people don't need access to child care. Here's how I see this. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are that chaotic extremist, just kind of that whole energy around them. I think what most Americans want is they just want a government that works. Not for the billionaires, not for what Donald Trump calls his rich as hell donors, but just works for most of us. Says women get to make their own medical decisions. says that giant corporations don't get to squeeze families and gouge them on prices. Just says we want a country that just works so we can raise our families, so we can go to work, so we can build some economic security. That's not J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. That's Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And I think people really do see that difference. And the people I'm seeing are not only motivated to get themselves to vote, they're motivated to get out there and knock on those doors, make those phone calls, talk to people in parking lots, and actually make it happen.
Senator, you say people really do see the difference between these two candidates. And I'd be willing to wager a little money on that one. And the reason is...
Not you trying to bet Elizabeth Warren on national television.
You know, we can, you know, some crab cakes and some, you know, some great Massachusetts fare. But the reality is this. Donald Trump, you know, you talk about, for example, you know, most voters want to, and the poll shows, support taxing large corporations. Donald Trump is allied with billionaires, went to the energy industry and said, hey, y'all give me $1 billion and I'll give you what you want.
Exactly.
Folks didn't move the needle with the American people. Donald Trump is bragging about the overturn of Roe versus Wade. You just addressed that very eloquently. And yet the American people are like, yeah, OK, whatever. Last night on a stage, Donald Trump addressed his rally, and he spends not one, not three, but 10 minutes talking about another man's genitalia. So please explain to me what America wants right now.
Okay, so let's just start out here with the notion that this is not what all of America wants. I get it. There are people who go to Trump rallies, and there are people who eat that with a spoon. But that's not all of America. And I know this race is closer than I sure wish it were, especially based on where we are on the issues. But I'm just going to say the other half right back to you. And that is not at a Donald Trump rally, not even at a fabulous, joyous Kamala Harris rally, but all across Michigan yesterday. How many people were showing up in little pop-up storefronts? How many people were at schools? How many people were gathering to say, I am willing to make this investment for my daughters and granddaughters. I'm going to get out there. Michigan did it 2 years ago and said, we're going to prove that we can vote to protect access to abortion for everyone in our state. Now they recognize that if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance come in, they're going to outlaw abortion in Michigan again, in Massachusetts, in all of our states. And so they're willing to get back in that fight. They're willing to get in the fight for a leader they can believe in like Kamala Harris. So I'm just going to push back against it, saying, I get it. There are people who go to his rallies, but there are people who right now, today, and over the next 16 days, are making an investment in our democracy, making an investment in equal rights for everyone, making an investment in our future. And at the end, we're going to see how many there are in each category, but I'm feeling good about our odds.
Senator, we also had the ex-president talking about tariffs, which sort of got buried under all his other junk talk, if you will, the last few days. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say at the Economic Club of Chicago.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word.
Tariffs also have another side. Isn't that something that you have to acknowledge?
No.
You could be plunging America into the biggest trade war since Smoot-Hawley.
But there are no tariffs.
You're going to stop. There are tariffs already.
No, there are no tariffs. All you have to do is build your plant in the United States, and you don't have any tariffs. It must be hard for you to, spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative, and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong.
Senator, help me understand the obsession here.
Look, Donald Trump has no economic plans otherwise. Let's be clear about that. And remember, the Democrats not only do have economic plans, we actually delivered on them. In that 2-year period right after Joe Biden was elected, remember that we passed the ARPA, remember, which got all that money to help all of our communities across America so that teachers didn't get laid off, firefighters didn't laid off. We turned around and passed the biggest infrastructure plan. We turned around and did the biggest climate package, paid for by my 15% minimum tax on these billionaire corporations that had been paying nothing. And we did the CHIPS and Science Act, not only making an investment in domestic manufacturing, but also doubling our investment in science. We have ideas and we deliver on those ideas. They are good for our economy and they are paying off. The numbers show it. What's Donald Trump got? Nothing. So he seizes on this idea of tariffs, and people look at it and say, are you nuts? Across the board tariffs just means raising the prices for everything that Americans consume that's imported. And Donald Trump just keeps going straight on because nobody can persuade Donald Trump about anything. And it just, to me, what it shows is not just how wrong he is on tariffs, it shows how empty of ideas the Republicans are. Look, their only game, they have been the one-note party for years now because it's been cut taxes for rich people. Trump has figured out that is not super popular. Most Americans think that Jeff Bezos should not be paying taxes at a lower rate than a Boston public school teacher. So he's shifted over and he's latched on to tariffs. And it makes no sense. That's what business people tell him. That's what economists tell him. That's what pretty much everybody who understands how an economy works tells him. But he doesn't have anything else. So he's going to keep talking about that. Again, it comes down to the choices. And this is a place, I want to say, not only is Harris terrific on this, the Democratic Party is good. And we should be proud of that. And we should support our Democrats in Senate races, in House races, because we've demonstrated when we get the trifecta, and I knock on wood when I say that, that we actually deliver for the American people.